All right, team, we are joined by the one and only Dinesh D'Souza. He is, of course, a columnist, author. You've seen him on TV. He's been in the conservative media game for some time here, my friends. He has a new book out. He's a best-selling author. He's got a new one, United States of Socialism, Who's Behind It, Why It's Evil, How to Stop It. Very timely, in fact, this book comes out now. Dinesh, great to see you.
Great to be on the show. Hi.
All right, so let's just get into it. We're already hearing, we had Governor Inslee saying that this is the real opportunity. He's monomaniacal about climate change among the left's agenda items. That's the one thing that he always talks about. Others are talking about forgiving loans as a racial justice issue, universal basic income. How do you see, you've got a book out on socialism right now. How does the left leverage this moment of crisis, unprecedented spending, and fear to push for some of these socialist agenda items that they've wanted for 100 years?
Well, let's see, how do I begin here? First of all, I think coronavirus has given us a window, a kind of foretaste of what socialism looks and feels like. My wife is from Venezuela. She's been telling me now for years about the empty shelves, the limits, the rationing. But now we've seen it. We've seen it here in America, even if on a temporary basis. We've also seen the other signature move of socialism, the attack on civil liberties, the invasion of privacy, the attack on religious liberty, freedom of assembly. And now, as you say, the left is trying to use fear as a pretext to do all kinds of things that they couldn't do otherwise. See, Marx didn't think you would need any of this. Marx thought that socialism would come because the working class would become so discontented that it would revolt. But the left has now figured out that's not going to happen. The working class actually has it too good. They're not going to revolt. We need climate fever. The world is ending. Or we need the virus is going to kill you if you don't do all these things. So they have become specialists in manufactured fear to make people do things that in calm and sober moments we never would do. So they're trying to get socialism ultimately here through a panic.
And what do you think? And we're speaking to Dinesh D'Souza. He's got a new book, United States of Socialism, Who's Behind It, Why It's Evil, How to Stop It. What do you see, for example, just in the latest Pelosi grab bag bill, this HEROES Act? There are all these things that they're trying to fund. Which one of the Democrat socialist agenda items do you think we're in the greatest danger of falling into as a result of this coronavirus? If you had to focus in on one, where you're like, they're really going to put the resources into this one in every sense.
Well, I think the greatest danger comes from the fact that when people over a fairly extended period of time are used to sitting on the couch and doing nothing and getting money for it and getting money on a regular basis, suddenly they realize, wait a minute, this is actually a pretty comfy lifestyle. I have more time to spend with my family. I can play Frisbee in the yard. This whole notion of me having to go to work for 8 to 10 hours a day and get pretty much the same amount of money is beginning to look kind of unappealing. So ironically, I think the left is relying on kind of the habits of lethargy setting in on people so that what the left is proposing is more tempting. Before this, people might go, well, how's that going to work? How can a country function when no one's working? Well, we see how it's functioning now. And so the left has the illusion that we can function like this perpetually. It's a temptation for people. And that's probably the best thing going for the left right now.
And it seems that the extension, for example, they're already looking at pushing some of these unemployment benefits that for a lot of people, especially people who are making around $40,000 a year or less than that, they make more money staying home, and that was intentional. That's not an unforeseen consequence of this. They want to extend this now into 2021. So do you think that is the argument for a universal basic income going to essentially become, well, we're spending trillions of dollars and taking care of all these people. Why don't we just keep spending the trillions of dollars and make sure everybody has everything they need?
Yes, the measures we've taken are so extraordinary. First of all, we've never done, I don't think the world has ever responded this way to any kind of epidemic. These are, you may almost call them wartime measures. They're measures that are taken in extraordinary circumstances, and they're not sustainable. I think deep down people do know this. The other thing I want to highlight is that, you mentioned things like the efforts to give money to illegal immigrants, or the idea that we need to keep a racial count of the minorities being disproportionately affected by the virus. We need to have diversity commissions now on corporate boards. Even the idea that somehow calling it the Chinese virus, the Wuhan virus, is somehow racist. It's important to see here that we have a new twist on socialism. It's socialism married to identity politics. See, Marxist socialism wasn't like that. For Marx, the world is divided into two groups. They're basically the working class and the capitalists. That's it. But for socialists today, there's a race divide, there's a gender divide, there's a divide between straights and gays, there's a divide between legals and illegals. And so the whole strategy of the socialist left is to cobble together a democratic majority of aggrieved victim groups. That's how you get to 51%.
Speaking to Dinesh D'Souza, author of United States of Socialism. So let's transition for a moment then into some of the arguments you make in the book, Dinesh. I mean, when people think of socialism, who's behind it? I mean, I'm sure you get into Marx a bit, but you mean who's behind it here in America? How are we getting? And are there are some of the folks that would obviously come to mind, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders. There are others that anyone who's paying attention to politics is aware, at least, that they're openly pushing for socialism. But who else is a part of this? And how else are we getting, are we closer to socialism in this country than we've ever been in your lifetime? Is that fair to say? And how are we getting pushed so far?
I mean, if the defeat of socialism was the big story of the 20th century, you have to say that the revival of socialism in the 21st century is not only a big story, but a big surprise. If you think of a spectrum with the free market at one end and full socialism on the other, you'd have to see that every Democrat, there is no exception to this, is pulling in the socialist direction. Not one of them is pulling in the free market direction. Now, the Democrats have rejected the explicit socialism of Bernie Sanders and the Squad in favor of what may be called the creeping socialism of people like Warren and Biden. But notice that Biden is now moving in the Sanders direction. He was against free college. Now he's for it. He embraces a lot of the same policies as Bernie and the Squad. He's fully behind, for example, the Green New Deal, which is the umbrella for bringing socialist policies to mainstream respectability. So the bottom line of it is that socialism today is now embedded in the Democratic Party and has very powerful allies in Hollywood and the media. So it is not only economic socialism, but it's a cultural thrust to socialism. And it has an appeal even for groups that are traditionally very hostile to it. You've got, for example, successful capitalists who say things like, we've now got to redistribute income because if we don't, we're going to have a revolution in our society. It's completely nonsensical, but nevertheless, they believe it.
In United States of Socialism, you also have the how to stop it part of the equation. And I wanted to ask you, given what we're seeing right now in this country where, everyone's just right now, we're just trying to get, stores open, people back to work. And there clearly are forces that are fighting against this, not just for fear of the virus, but also for very political reasons. What can the Trump administration and what can conservatives in government and outside of it do to stop this, what feels like massive onslaught of government spending, government control? I mean, Dinesh, look, it feels like we're losing right now. So how do we turn the tide?
Well, it's a very strange thing to say that we're losing. I mean, admittedly, we've had this economic contraction produced, obviously, not by failed policies, but by an external threat. Look, currently, we control the presidency, the Senate, and the court. And the left basically has the House. So under all commonsensical calculations, we should be in control. But weirdly, even though we are in control, we never seem to be in charge. And it's well worth asking why that is the case. How can it be that when we control most of the rudders of government, the left is still setting the agenda? I think the answer to that has got to be that the left controls the big megaphones of the culture, namely academia, the media, and Hollywood. So this is not a straight fight between Republicans and Democrats. They've got allies working for them that are, and then you have to add in the deep state. So you've got the police agencies of government which purport to be neutral, but which have been doing their bidding So it's really important for us to hold these institutions accountable. Recently, Barr said, is quoted saying, we're not really going to be going criminally after Obama or Biden. And I say, why not? If Obama gave the order, if he is the mastermind ultimately of an effort to frame and entrap not just General Flynn, but ultimately Trump, why wouldn't we hold them accountable? Why is it our attitude to sort of get over this and move on so that those guys can come back and do their thing when they have a chance? So I think it's very important ultimately to beat socialism, not just to refute it. I try to do that in the book, but ultimately to fight it at every level. And that means holding the deep state accountable. It also means creating alternative institutions of media, because that's our long-term threat. Look, it's an even bigger challenge to me than re-electing Trump. Why? Because the lopsidedness of the media affects every election.
We're speaking to Dinesh D'Souza, author of the new book, United States of Socialism, Who's Behind It, Why It's Evil, How to Stop It. Dinesh, you brought up the deep state, and you had your own battle with the deep state some years ago. You were not treated fairly in that process. The president agreed with that assessment and gave you a presidential pardon. Given what we have now seen, and, I worked both with the FBI when I was in the CIA as well as the NYPD Intelligence Division. This doesn't really surprise me. What maybe does surprise me is how sloppy and obvious they were in this case. As somebody who was the target of this, clearly was treated differently because of politics by, I believe it was Preet Bharara in the Southern District, correct? What do you make of these revelations, and what do you want to tell people that see this and say, you mean that there are federal prosecutors and FBI agents who are actually bad guys for political reasons?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is that this goes very far. It goes beyond, like Preet Bharara wasn't doing anything on his own. He was in league with the Holder Justice Department, and I think I know who Holder was playing wingman for. Similarly, here in the Flynn case, you see that these FBI agents, Peter Strzok, even Comey, Mueller, these guys are not going to do it on their own. Somebody is giving the order that is very, very high up. And the other point that's very alarming is that the judges are in on it. This is critical. We see this with Judge Sullivan. It's obvious that he is very frustrated by the decision of the Justice Department to drop the case against Flynn. So now he's looking to see how he himself, the judge, can resurrect it. And what's the basis for resurrecting it? Flynn pleaded guilty. This is the same thing that people say to me. Well, you pleaded guilty, didn't you? Obviously, you admit you did it. Well, here's the key point. When you're sitting across from the prosecutors, they will say to me, Dinesh, you violated the campaign finance law, but that's a fairly trivial offense. We're going to charge you with mail fraud. And I say, mail fraud? And they go, yeah, because you put your check in the mail. And then we're going to get you for bank fraud. And I go, bank fraud? And they go, yeah, because you took that money out of your own bank account. It's your money, but it came out of your bank account. So the banks are involved, so it's bank fraud. So the point to realize here is that they're using laws that were passed to go after the mafia and ISIS against political opponents. And so what ultimately for someone like me are faced with a choice, a few months in the confinement center or years and years in federal prison, a destroyed career, a destroyed life, no relationship with my daughter. So no rational person is not going to take a plea under those circumstances. So this is the legal gangsterism that is going on in this country. I'm convinced it's much more widespread than I would ever have thought possible. And this is one of the supreme challenges, I think, facing Trump, to root this out, to expose it, and it gets to the very root of justice itself.
Dinesh D'Souza, everybody. United States of Socialism is the book. It's out now, available on Amazon and wherever you buy books. Dinesh, always good to see you and appreciate your time, sir. Good luck.
My pleasure.
Speaking of the deep state, and I just had my chat with my old friend Dinesh D'Souza about what he went through, and I think it's important for you all to hear that they will go after conservatives. And if I continue on my current trajectory, I can assure you, my friends, the left-wing statist apparatus will come after me at some point. So be prepared for that, although I'm ready for the fight. The Buckster, he's a polite fellow, but he's got that tenacious old Irish side. So the judge in the case against Flynn, Judge Sullivan, was presented with the possibility, I mean, this was truly stunning, that the FBI had lost the 302. Doesn't have the original 302. Now, the 302 is effectively the field report. When I was the NYPD, we called it a DD5. That was the intelligence field report that you would have, and you would talk about your confidential informant or whatever it may be. And 302 is what the FBI uses for their field reporting, effectively. And there is there was this over the weekend revelation that Sullivan was told about this. He was told that there might, and this is how, I mean, it's just amazing. This is how he responded. Now, keep in mind, the 302 is what the FBI agents struck, and I believe Pientka, I'm not sure how to pronounce this FBI guy's name, who sat down with Flynn, right? That the record of the conversation is what they write down. That is it. The record of the conversation is what they say it is. And you would think that a record like that, that's being used as the basis for whether or not someone's going to go to prison, would be really, really important, right? This is like if someone wrote on a Post-it note, this is what you said. And then you're going to go to prison because of what I said you said, because I wrote it on this Post-it note. And then he showed up in court and they said, yeah, send this guy to prison. The judge says, okay, why? Oh, I wrote on a Post-it note what the guy told me. Okay, where's the Post-it note? I don't know. Somebody else has got it. Don't you think the judge? Don't you think that freedom hangs in the balance document would be important? Here's what Judge Sullivan said when he was found out that they do not have the original. The government does not have the original 302. The government, I'm sure, will address that. I don't want to focus on any other cases before the court, but, sometimes throughout the best efforts, notwithstanding the best efforts of everyone, things happen and documents are lost. I mean, it just happens. And so we'll wait for the government's submission. That was what he said. That's stunning. This is from James Gagliano, who's a legal analyst. He wrote about this. He said it's a shockingly cavalier take by Judge Sullivan to defense counsel Sidney Powell on September 10th of 2019 regarding the lost original Flynn 302. Now this comes. Now we look at what the judge said about this. Now we find out the 302 was revised. It was changed. They entrapped Flynn. And the judge was like, oh, you guys couldn't find it. No big deal. Oh, no, it's a very big deal. Because the FBI and the deep state actors within it can charge you for lying based upon whatever they write down as your words on a piece of paper. And the federal judge, meant to protect your rights, will think nothing of it when that freedom hangs in the balance piece of paper just disappears suddenly. Does that sound like the America you want to live in, my friends? I don't think so.
Doing what feels good, what's convenient, what's easy, that's how little kids think. Unfortunately, a lot of so-called grown-ups, including some with fancy titles and important jobs, still think that way, which is why things are so screwed up.
Is he taking a little shot at the administration here? Is that Obama, who's grown up, as adults and children? They do things easy. They do this thing. Trump. I'm not gonna call him out by name, but I'm gonna say he's bad, and he acts like a kid. Oh boy, Barack Obama is in a different situation when he comes after the Trumpster. No, he didn't name Trump here, to be fair, but I think it's pretty clear what the implication is. But Barack Obama has never been subjected to a person who has a similarly sized megaphone who will really fight back, because that person does not care if the media calls him horrible names, calls him a racist or whatever. The person doesn't care, and therefore you have a more even playing field for the fight. And so that's why Trump is stepping into this one right now. Oh, wait, can I just I wanted to throw this in there as well. Whenever you see someone now who doesn't like, and you're seeing this with leftists about the whole even further collapse of the Flynn case and Russiagate all around it, and all this reporting that Durham, who's investigating the clearly corrupt origins of Obamagate, all the things that are happening. Whenever you see someone say, oh, but there are so many people dying and you're focusing on this, it tends to be people who, when the story is something they like, it doesn't matter that there's COVID-19 out there, right? They'll run stories on whatever they want. But the go-to now I'm seeing for a lot of libs, because the news cycle outside of COVID-19 has been pretty damaging to some major lib narratives out there. The moment that it strays into territory they don't like, it's how could you focus on this when all these people are suffering? So while the pandemic goes on, are we not allowed to talk about any other news? There's nothing else is allowed to happen. That's what I'm curious about. I think it's fair to ask that question, and we already know what the answer is here. But Trump is willing to fight back when Obama decides that he's going to say something mean about the Trumpster, and so this is how you get clip 10. Play it.
So I think we had a great weekend. We did a lot of terrific meetings. Tremendous progress is being made on many fronts, including coming up with a cure for this horrible plague that has beset our country. I think a lot of things have happened. Very good. It was a working weekend. It was a good weekend. A lot of very good things have happened. I didn't hear it. Look, he was an incompetent president. That's all I can say. Grossly incompetent. Thank you.
Grossly incompetent. Haven't heard people say that about Obama in a while, have you? What were the big achievements on policy of the Obama administration? What were the genius foreign policy stratagems that were accomplished? Does anybody know? Does anybody have an answer here? That's what I would want to know. I would want someone to tell me, where is it that we could say that the Obama administration was in fact adept, skillful? I mean, yeah, sure, they had the media doing a lot of propaganda for them. They had people that were willing to do anything and say anything on behalf of the Obama administration, sure. So I guess in that sense, their messaging was certainly helped along the way. But when we look back at what happened here and what we're being told now is going to happen with the investigation of the Russia collusion fantasy that was put, and it wasn't really, I mean, it was a conspiracy. That's a better word for it. I mean, it's fantastical in the sense that it never happened, but it was a conspiracy. It was brought together for a purpose. This wasn't just a bedtime story that liberals told themselves so they could feel a little bit less sad about Hillary losing the election. They used this as part of a coup effort to destroy the incoming administration. This was a weaponization of the FBI and the intelligence community, and that's really beyond doubt at this point. That's really beyond, I think, anybody's ability to reasonably question on the facts. And now it's just how involved was Obama and what did Biden know? And I really want to find out who leaked that phone call between Kislyak and Flynn. Who leaked the phone call to the FBI? Because if they find that out and that person does not face criminal charges, then we know the whole system is really just a joke. It's just a joke. It doesn't count. When they don't want someone to get in trouble, that person doesn't get in trouble no matter how egregious. And I think you could already make that argument with what happened with Andy McCabe, former acting director of the FBI. So he can lie several times under oath, and that's no problem. But General Flynn lies under oath, doesn't actually lie. They rewrite their version of what he said. They already had the transcript of every word that was said beforehand, and that's supposed to be a serious crime? That's supposed to be a thing that they will put in the... I mean, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. Oh, but now they're all upset because they're saying that Trump fired the State Department IG. Guess what? Trump's allowed to fire the State Department IG. Play 12 years. Pelosi whining about it.
Well, this is new to us and typical of the White House announcing something that is very unsavory. They would do it late on a Friday night. The fact is, as you indicated, it's the fourth Inspector General. Inspectors General, that office was created after Watergate to make sure that there was integrity in the departments, the agencies of government. They're supposed to show cause. Even Republicans in Congress are concerned
Was
about
he investigating the Secretary of State? When you say unsavory, is that what you mean?
Well, I mean unsavory when you take out someone who is there to enforce to stop waste, fraud, abuse, or other violations of the law that are they believe to be happening. So again, let's take a look and see. The president has the right to fire any federal employee. But the fact is, if it looks like it's in retaliation for something that the IG, the Inspector General, is doing, that could be unlawful.
Could be unlawful. This is the way that they do this construct. I see it happen over and over. CNN has a piece how Trump's firing may be illegal of the IG. You know what else could be illegal? Anything, depending on the surrounding circumstances that a president would do. Trump just signed a bill into law. Could be illegal. You say, Buck, what do you mean? How could it be illegal? Did someone give him a bag of money under the table to go sign that? And he was going to veto it, but then they gave him money? Could be illegal. You could play this could be illegal game all the time. But notice how dishonest it is. What rationale do they have for this could be illegal? Remember, he has total authority, total discretion to fire this Steve Linick, who got fired on Friday as Inspector General of the State Department, for any reason or no reason. He'd be like, Steve Linick, I just don't think you're very good. Bye. That's it. It's not reviewable. Oh, but now they get to corrupt intent. That's what they'll say. Oh, if there's corrupt intent for the firing. If he's, investigating somebody and Trump didn't want him to investigate him. You know what they're saying? I mean, this is amazing. The libs are completely out of their minds. They really are. They still think, oh, the Logan Act. They'll talk about the Logan Act as if it's a serious thing that we should be listening to them. And they're completely absurd. No one goes to prison on the Logan Act, and they know that. But they still tell, oh, it's against the law. Secretary Pompeo, the claim right now is that he was under investigation for making a staffer walk his dog and make a dinner reservation for him and his wife. Now, I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say that if you ask somebody to do something for you that you would ask any normal person or friend to do for you on a one or two off basis or whatever. I mean, are they what they're gonna say that the Secretary of State, if he said, hey man, can you make a dinner reservation for me? I'm really busy in this meeting right now. That's corruption. Oh, it's using its personal benefit for the. Come on, man. Come on. Oh, you can't do this. Well, this is like the same people that want to bring the emoluments clause suit because Trump gets a benefit from foreigners, and they say under the Constitution this is not allowed because some foreigners buy, I'm not making this up, food, drinks at the Trump hotel. They may have undue influence on Donald Trump himself. I've just said, try this out. Go into Trump International Hotel when it's open. Get some of their delicious flambéed bacon strips, which are amazing. And then say, when you sign the little check for, $40 or whatever, it's an expensive place. When you sign a little check, then say you want your meeting with the president. You bought your bacon strips. Now you want the meeting. That's right. People, they won't even laugh at you. They'll think you're sick. They'll think you got a problem. They'll probably call professionals to come help you work through your issues. This is crazy, right? But this is what they're bringing the emoluments clause suit on. Oh, these foreigners are. This is real. And a judge, the Supreme Court's going to. This just happened last week. A judge has said, oh, the emoluments case can go forward. First of all, usually you can't sue a president in office for any reason. They're letting them sue the president for this. This is outrageous, right? But the hashtag resistance judiciary, they don't care how much damage is done to the rule of law. They don't care what the costs of all of this are. They're just disgusting. They will do anything to take this guy down because he's such a threat to their sense of their own importance and their role in the world and their future and everything else. And it's just a complete and utter outrage. But look, the Trump firing of the IG gives them something else to sink their teeth into now other than what we were learning in the most recent weeks because of what the Director of National Intelligence has been doing. Richard Grinnell, I said on this show that he was like the Wyatt Earp of the intel community, and that kind of went viral over the weekend. And it's pretty awesome. Pretty fun to see that happen. But it's true. I mean, he's in there to clean up. I will give Andy McCarthy credit. Andy McCarthy said that we really want him to be more like Doc Holliday. I've said that's if you want an analogy for Trump's foreign policy, and especially when he was dealing with some of the bad actors in the world stage, he is like Doc Holliday. Remember in that scene in Tombstone where he says they'll be a little less jumpy if they know Doc's on the street howitzer, referring to a sawed-off shotgun? Yeah. You want a guy who's got a bazooka in his pocket to be the guy who actually might use it, or else it doesn't really mean all that much. I know you can't fit a bazooka in the pocket, but it's fun to think about that. So I don't think anyone's going to fire the Secretary of State because he might have had someone on his staff make a 30-second phone call on his behalf. But remember, this is how libs play the game. Extreme scrutiny of the law and maximum punishment and twisting the intent of the law in order to ruin people. And, we believe in the law. And then when their people do something bad, it's, whoa, hold on a second. What about the mass incarceration state, man? What's going on? Come on, you can't do that. And this is just a good public servant. McCabe wasn't lying. Comey's totally cool, man. They're just disgusting. They have no principles. They don't care what they have to say to get what they want. They'll just say it. Pelosi talking about this she's an absurdity. And I just would love to see somebody try to make a public defense of why anybody should respect Nancy Pelosi's honor or integrity. I mean, she has none.
You got a president who blames everybody in the world for the problems that we face except himself. This is a guy who, used to talk about President Xi as being a great leader, a good friend of his, the leader of North Korea, who was probably the worst dictator in the world, was a wonderful human being. They wrote love letters to each other. Look, what they're trying to do now is instead of address the pandemic that we have, and I should say, George, that the scandal of the moment is that we don't have national policy. This is the president of the United States. We should have national policy based on science. We should have testing going on all over this country so that when we reopen the economy, workers understand that they're working in a safe environment. Instead, you got 50 states going it alone because we don't have that national protocol based on science.
Oh my gosh, the socialism is back, baby. Bernie Sanders, we haven't heard from him in a while. He's probably like, look at Joe Biden. You guys say I'm old and crazy? Look at him in the basement. He's talking nonsense all the time. And you know what? The Bern would be right, because that is what's happening. But the Bern also sees this, and we'll have to be referring back to this week, because we're running a little short on time today on the show. I never have enough time with you guys. Never have enough. That reminds me also, BuckSexton.com for the stories. Like I mentioned the story about the Wyatt Earp thing. BuckSexton.com. That's where I need you all to go. You can also download the podcast there. That's becoming the one-stop shop for all things Buck. But let's get back to Bernie for a second. Here's what he says about we should seize this moment. The crisis is an opportunity. All the things I've been telling you. The socialists love this moment in time as an opportunity to remake America. Play 6.
If there is any silver lining in the midst of this terrible, terrible, and unprecedented moment in American history in terms of the economy, in terms of the pandemic, it is that maybe we start rethinking some fundamental tenets about the way our government and society works. And we should ask ourselves, among other things, is healthcare a human right that all of us deserve because we're human beings, or is it simply a healthcare benefit that somehow we lose when we lose our jobs? Mr. Navarro talked about the great economy, the beautiful economy that existed before the pandemic. Well, half of the people in America were living paycheck to paycheck. I don't think it's a beautiful economy that when paychecks stop for 2 weeks, millions and millions of people don't have enough money to buy the food that they need to feed their families. We need an economy that works for all, not just Trump and his billionaire friends.
Socialism. We talked about it with Dinesh. Bernie's telling you right now this is going to be a huge opening for the Democratic Party to try to ram through all kinds of the most aggressive socialist policies. And that's really the plan, man. That's what they're going to be up to. They're going to look at this, as I've been saying, they're going to look at the very damaged and fragile state of this country right now, damage that they've been pushing for, at least economically, with these lockdowns, which are completely insane. And they're going to say, well, you know what? We should just be in charge of this all of the time. We should be giving people money like this all of the time. That's what's fair. That's what's right. They will say, get ready for it.